After U.S. President Joe Biden's meeting with the Quad on Friday in Berlin, we're left with more questions than answers. We also have migration taking center stage at the European Council there in Brussels. And now joining me to discuss these developments is Ivana Stradner from the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. She's a senior fellow. Hello, Ivana. Thank you for joining me on World News Tonight.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yes, now maybe I'm being a little too harsh, maybe a little too critical at the recent visit of President Biden there to Berlin to talk with four very important countries here in Europe, the leaders of which to garner more support for Ukraine, but that's not all they talked about. But if we look at the precarious situation that the country currently finds itself, and also we hear that President Zelensky was unable to convince Western leaders of his victory plan. What is your impression of this meeting that Joe Biden just held in Berlin, President Zelensky not being a party to?
First of all, what you have just stated, you're not harsh. That's exactly also how I see the situation. Lots of words, no facts. I'm not saying, by any means that we haven't provided Ukraine with help, but that is not enough. It's enough help to survive, but not to win. And I was not also surprised that the Zelensky and his victory plan did not resonate with some people in the West, especially because if you, for example, take a look at how Washington policy towards Ukraine is, it seems to me that here we are also not clear what the victory is and what and how we want Ukraine to win. So having said that, today meetings, I think it was an important meeting to gather the allies and to discuss what needs to be done. And I hope there are a lot of things that they discussed that we don't know about, because what it's publicly available is just basically statements that they are going to support Ukraine for as long as it takes. And that is, as I mentioned, not enough. Because think about this. The war in Ukraine, it's not only about Ukraine. Putin is at war with the West, period. That's an undeniable fact. Just look what's happening in Moldova. Just look what's happening in Georgia. Just look how Putin has also been trying to challenge NATO in the West, including hybrid activities through sabotage, et cetera, et cetera. So if this is not the challenging of the West, then I don't know what it is. Not only that, he's also dealing with North Korea, China, and Iran to gather his allies to help him to accomplish his objectives that are significantly more than his war in Ukraine. The third thing that is tremendously important that I want to emphasize is that whoever believes, including President Trump, who firmly believes that he can stop this war probably in 24 hours, is sorely mistaken. Because if you carefully listen to Putin's statements, he claimed that he does not want to negotiate. So for him, he would use negotiation just to buy more time, to replenish his army, to reposition his army, and to continue. And that's why it's tremendously important right now to continue to send Ukraine all the weapons Ukraine needs to win, because that is not going to end only in Ukraine. Just take a look at what's happening right now, what you just mentioned before our talk in Moldova, but also in Georgia. Just look what is happening in the Western Balkans when NATO also warned a few days ago on possible escalations, let alone what is happening in the global South. So having said that, we are thinking tactically and operationally, and Putin is thinking strategically. And the worst part of this whole story is that while some people in the West like to put Putin on a pedestal thinking that he's a master strategist, let's not forget he was also a mediocre KGB agent. So having said that, it's very sad that we are actually competing and losing against such circumstances.
So all these red flags are there. You just enumerated many of them. Yet we are reluctant to do very much about that. Now, we look at the United States as kind of the leader when it comes to making some of these major decisions, whether Ukraine can use long-range weapons to strike targets deep in Russia. Are we waiting for November 5th? Biden is not going to be around. His days are numbered in the Oval Office. Is he still just waiting for these elections to pan out? Do you think we're going to get some more concrete decisions, say, come November 6th, depending on the outcome?
I truly hope that some people in Washington, D.C. are very careful what they are saying right now, only because of the elections. But we are going to see what is going to happen after November the 6th. If Trump wins, I do believe there are a lot of concerns, right concerns, that are coming from Europe because of his approach, how he plans to approach Russia's war in Ukraine. We already see for his tenure, that he was very weak on Russia. If Kamala wins, we still don't know, what is going to be the amount of support that she is going to prioritize for Ukraine. But the good news is also that countries in Western Europe are waking up to Russia's threat. I was recently in Poland, so people in Poland absolutely understand what is happening on the ground and why it is tremendously important right now to support Ukraine. But you have mentioned also something extremely important, providing Ukraine with the long-range missiles. The reason why some policymakers in Washington, D.C. are reluctant to allow Ukraine to hit inside Russia, it is because of fear of escalation. And this is absolutely the most ridiculous thing, because Putin has been threatening with escalating the war, even when we wanted to send javelins, even when he wanted to send fighter jets, fill in the blank, any support. And now he's escalating with this. The second thing is nuclear escalation. As soon as there were discussions here in Washington, D.C. about allowing Ukraine to strike inside Russia, Putin immediately announced the change in nuclear doctrine. So it is the part of his psychological game. And unfortunately, it works, because if you look at the statements of some policymakers here in Washington, D.C., but also in Europe, they keep talking about possible escalations, and even some people about a World War III attitude, which is exactly what Russia has been pushing as a narrative in the information space.
Yes, it seems like they're forcing, Vladimir Putin's strategy is forcing the West to draw its own self-imposed red lines. Very unfortunate time for Ukraine. Ivana Stradner, Senior Fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you very much.
And that concludes this edition of World News Tonight. Thank you all for joining us. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you next time. Good night.